Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Games Done Quick Hotfix. I am your host, Smooth Operative, and today we have another great speedrun for you all during this October Disability Awareness Month, Final Fantasy XIV by Matthias Griffin. But before we get to the run, if you didn't know, the Agdq schedule is out, so take a look at that if you're trying to make plans around the event. And we also do have some information about some upcoming shows. Tree Fort is back this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, hosted by the lovely Nikasor. The Community Spotlight game is this Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Next weekend, we'll be having the Mystery Tournament Finals, 2 p.m. on both the 26th and the 27th. And 1 week from today, there will be a new show. It's called Learning with Liz, and Liz will be teaching you some speedrun-related tips and tricks. So if you would like to get into speedrunning and you don't know how, Learning with Liz will be an excellent place for you to start. Anyway, you guys, that's going to do it for the announcements. So I'm going to hand the stream over to Matthias Griffin, and I hope you enjoy the run. Thanks so much for being here. Matthias?
And thank you so much, Smooth, for having me here for Games Done Quick. It's really an honor to be a part of the Games Done Quick Hotfix series for Disability Month. And thanks to everyone who accepted my run for this. It's a big deal for me because 18 months ago, I didn't even know that Games Done Quick was even a thing. And now here I am playing on the Games Done Quick channel for all of you guys watching in the audience. Hello to everyone who is watching in chat right now. We're so glad to have you as part of the experience. So I know that everyone has been asking, and believe me, in the past speedrun dungeon or speedrun marathons that I've done previously, everyone's been asking, how do you speedrun an MMO like Final Fantasy XIV? And the way that it's done by a lot of people, including myself, is to do it as an IL or individual level run. So that means doing the various dungeons, the trials, the 24-player raids, and doing them in all sorts of various ways. There's the traditional way, which is with a normal party setup with a four-player party. It's with a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS, also known as a light party. There's also a full party, which is 8 players, which doubles the number on those. And then there's 24-player raids, which uses 3 tanks, 6 healers, and a whole bunch of DPS. And so that's how people do speedrunning in this game. And I started doing it myself last year. First, initially doing it by completing all of 2.0. How I did it, so I started by beginning with a brand new file, and I played all the way to the end of the Praetorium. I did it in May of last year, and about just under 16 hours to do it. And then a couple months later, I did it again and got about 15 hours and 45 minutes. And then after that, a few months later, I started to do IL runs. And so most of the people who run Final Fantasy XIV as a speedrun game focus on doing what's known as a solo run or an unsynced run. This is a feature that was introduced by Square Enix at the end of 2015, where players could do dungeons by removing the restrictions, because how dungeons normally run, you get to going into a dungeon that's level 15, but your experience level is 25. The game caps your experience level at only a few levels higher than the required level to enter the dungeon, and you can only use the abilities that are available up to a certain level. But with the restrictions taken off by going unsynced, those, you don't have to worry about that, and you can run through, do whatever you want, and that's how it runs. So that's how I've been doing it for speedrun marathons. Most of the records, I have set some in the past in solo, but most of my records that I've achieved have been in traditional light party as well as full party and 24-player raids with myself and a whole bunch of other people, including members of my free company. That's this game's version of a guild. And so that's how running is pretty much done. So the way I'm going to be doing it for all of you guys here tonight is to do the 13 2.0 Light Party dungeons, starting with the first one, which is at level 15, and ending with the last one, which is a level 50 dungeon. And I will be playing them on my Red Mage. And Red Mage was something that I learned considered to be the most popular way of doing solo speedrunning in Final Fantasy XIV. A lot of the runs, a lot of the records that were set were achieved by using Red Mage. There have been other records set with other classes, but Red Mage, for the most part, in solo runs, has been the most prolific warrior class to get a record with. So, as far as it's concerned, I'll keep going, starting with the first dungeon and moving all the way to the last one. I want to make sure that I have the undersized party option. This allows me to run the game solo. And so something else I want to also try and encourage in the audience tonight. If you've never played this game before, when you go through the dungeon on your first playthrough, you'll get cutscenes that show you the introduction of the dungeon. You get the boss's introduction, and then once the boss is defeated, everyone celebrates in their own way. They celebrate depending on what race you play as and depending on what gender you play as. Most of the characters will either fist pump or throw their hands up in the air in victory. But what I'm playing as is a male version of Miqo'te. Miqo'te was the first human-animal hybrid introduced into this game. There have been a few others introduced in later expansions. And so male Miqo'te, they don't celebrate by fist pumping or by throwing their hands up in the air. How they celebrate is they wiggle their ears like this. And when I first saw it, the very first time I saw it, I was like, it vindicated my intention to play with the Miqo'te, because when I was choosing my race, I was like, wow, this, in terms of the lore, this is the one that I associate with the most. So I could really appreciate that, and having my character use his ear flicker like this is really cool. So every time we complete a dungeon in this run, I want the audience to use the chat to type in #earflicker every time we finish a dungeon. Just a way for you guys to get some audience participation, just so we can have a little more fun with the experience, so you guys can feel like a part of it too. So, with that in mind, what do you say we get started? So,
I'm ready when you are. Just let me know when to start.
Right, thank you so much, Smooth. So we will get started with our first of the 13 dungeons, Sistasha. Time will start when the words "Duty Commenced" appear on screen, and that is when I will have first control in the dungeon. So since, of course, the stream is a few seconds behind you and me talking, I'll give you the prompts when the words have appeared on screen, and that's when the time will start.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so here we go.
All right, I started the timer. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
It'll officially start now, but...
Oh, okay. I got it.
Right.
Now. It's starting now.
Okay. So, the abilities they're going to see me using right out of the gates, playing as Red Mage, are Core, which is used for me to implement a dash attack with my rapier, and then Displacement is the ability that I can use to backflip off of my opponents. And then I also have Manification. This allows me to not only do a reset of the cooldown on those two abilities, but also doubles the gauge of the red and the Red Mage meter, which is my black magic and my white magic. Red Mage was introduced in 2017 with the Stormblood expansion, and this allows me to be able to play the role of a spell sword, and that's essentially what this is what I'm playing as. So I'm going to pull everything over in what's known as kiting. I don't know why they call it kiting. All I know is that it's really cool, and it's something that I can be able to use to get everything together and just kill off as quickly as I can. Now, we're going to have our first instance of an RNG situation here. I'm going to touch this coral and hope that, yep, we got what we needed. So if I touched one of the other two switches on the coral and guessed wrong, I would have been poisoned and I would have had to kill another enemy until I got it right. So now that I have, we're going to go ahead and move along further. So we're in Sestasha. This is a pirate haven. And so we're going to be meeting a bunch of pirates, including their leader, Captain Madison. And we cannot kill the captain, unfortunately. All we can do is just damage him and force him to retreat. We're actually outrunning him, but he'll eventually outrun us. Take these guys over here and try and draw them all over to this door. And once we've done that, go ahead and start casting to be able to get the key that is required to open this door. Open the door to the captain's quarters. We'll go ahead and dash at this Shadowtail Reaver, who has the next key we require. Now we're just going to run back out this door, hang a left, and then open up another door once we take out these guys. Yeah, if I'm interacting at any point with something and I take even the slightest amount of damage, it cancels my interaction with it. I will go ahead and confront the captain again, force him to retreat once again. We'll backflip off of his friend. And then we'll just keep chasing after him. Core and our displacement as best we can. Just get rid of anything that's in our way. So we made it to our first boss here. He's known as Den the Orca Tooth, and he is a Sahagin, which is this game's version of the Zoras from The Legend of Zelda. Unfortunately, these guys are not going to be selling, or Den specifically, is not going to be selling you flippers for 500 rupees, nor is he going to be giving you a sapphire in exchange for his hand in marriage. So, yeah, they're not nice like that. They're kind of like original Zora. Next up is the Tamtara Deep Croft, and this is the first dungeon. There are a few that have a strong connection to the original Final Fantasy XIV. I'm sure anyone who's watching is aware of the fact that the original Final Fantasy XIV gained a reputation as being the Sonic 06 of its time, being a game that was just really glitchy, really bad, and when Square Enix came to realize the error of their ways, they decided they needed to do right by their fans, and so they did that by basically overhauling the game and taking a page out of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask by ending the original Final Fantasy XIV by dropping a moon on the world. That's how I describe it to new people who have come into the game or who see me speedrun. That's basically how the original Final Fantasy XIV ended. It basically ended Majora's Mask style. So here in Tamtara Deep Croft, we need to kill off these enemies, these soul counters, in order to be able to have access to these cultist orbs. We need to deactivate a total of 4 of them. Deactivate the first one in order to advance further. Now, I can't be able to target everything I see if they run behind safety like that. But yeah, that can be a real frustration. And it's important that I kill off those Akmena varlets because they're mages, and as mages, they'll be able to stay out of the range of my attacks. So getting rid of them quickly is very important. And draw everyone in that I've kited. And then we'll go ahead and deactivate our next orb. I was wondering who in the chat was going to start the orb chant.
I'm sorry.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew that when we came here into Tamtara that this is what was going to happen.
I just can't help myself.
So, yes, we continue on. It's very important that we get the Akmena especially dealt with. Oh, this one. stay just out of the range of my Contra 6. You'll notice that I'm using two different light attacks as well. I have Fletch, which is a powerful single target attack, and Contra 6, which is an AoE attack. It's very important that I get rid of the Archmane of Varlets as quickly as I can as I make my way towards the last of the orbs. This one just stayed out of the range, but that's alright. No problem. Of you. And we'll go ahead and collect this rosary. That'll allow us to deactivate the force field that we ran by that will allow us to take on the next wave of boss enemies before we get our hands on the final boss. And deactivate the barrier here. And bring everyone in. The soul counter one more time. Turn off 2 more of the orbs, and then we'll have access to the final boss, who we need to kill in one shot. If we don't one-shot him, he will have an ability, courtesy of some imps, that will allow him to go invincible. So we want to prevent that at all costs. But because we're so strong, this is not a problem. So in regards to the spells that I'm casting, they have a value, and the value determines how many points are scored into my red mage gauge. And so whenever I cast a white mage spell, it'll fill up the white mage meter. It'll fill up the black mage meter when I cast a black spell. And the more I put into them, the better. So next up, we're off to what is the most frustrating of the dungeons as far as this speed run. Copperbell Mines, because this one takes the longest. It takes me about 7.5 to 8 minutes to finish it, and it has nothing to do with how this dungeon is set up in terms of its design. It's all based on the mini bosses, because the mini bosses are not the typical things that we're going to be confronting elsewhere down the line. So when we go through the elevator, we're going to need to turn on another one as well on down the line, but we're off and running. Use my magnification. Now, yeah, sometimes the enemies will just position themselves in just really awkward spots that I can't use my abilities effectively, so I just have to deal with it and run past them. I don't have use of those abilities. I can just use my sword to by anything that gets in my way. This guy down, because I don't think he's in range for my AoE. I'll get all the way down over here, kill off this Spriggan. Yeah, you'll see a lot of Spriggans in this cave. I have to pick up this fire sand. This is essential for clearing myself a path, because since this is a mine, this is something that I absolutely require. I need to pick up 2 of these fire sands in order to put them into the trigger for the blaster. So I'll run over here, put the powder in the chamber, then trigger the blaster. Alright, so the first mini-boss, as I said, this is not a traditional boss. It's basically a small enemy gauntlet, starting with some Spriggans, then we'll have some bombs, and it ends with a Minotaur. But everything is on a fixed timer, and it takes everything a long time to show up. It takes a total of 2 minutes for me to complete this particular part of this dungeon. So, since we have 2 minutes to kill, if there's anyone who has any questions about the run or any questions about the game itself, feel free to ask them now, because since we have this time on our hands, this is probably the best time to be able to take audience questions. Feel free to ask away while we're killing off all these little bunnies and also the bombs as they come along. Also, I see some people who have made it to the most recent expansion who are starting their Raktika Greatwood chants.
Someone was asking, are there differences between jobs?
Yes, there are actually lots of differences between jobs. There are total, with the current expansion, there are a total of 18 of them. There are 8 starter jobs, and it's also based on where you start the game. 8 jobs that are starters are spread out across 3 hub cities. And so with the 3 hub cities, depending on what you choose, in Gridania, you have Conjurer, which is the healing class that can turn into White Mage. You have Archer, which obviously uses bow and arrow. They can turn into Bards. There's Lancer, which uses Spears, which is the class that I started playing as when I first played this game, and it's been my favorite ever since. They turn into Dragoons. Then there's also in Limsa the Marauder, which uses axes. They can become warriors. There's the Arcanist, which is unique in the fact that it has 2 different warrior classes it can turn into. Arcanists use spell books to cast their magic. They can turn into Summoners, which focus on DPS magic, and Scholars, which use healing magic. And then finally in Ul'dah, there is 3 classes. There's Gladiator, which uses a sword and shield. That can turn into a Paladin. Then there's also Pugilist, which uses martial arts, and they can turn into monks. And finally, there's Thaumaturge, which uses elemental magic. They can turn into Black Mage. And then there's also another class that's available in Limsa that's not available right away. You have to get to level 10 on a required class, and then complete the job quest that's associated with it. And then you can unlock Rogue, which uses daggers to fight, and then they can evolve into ninjas. So those are the classes associated with the first expansion of Realm Reborn. Then the second expansion, Heaven's Ward, introduced Dark Knight, which uses long swords, as well as Machinists, which are gunners, and Astrologian, which uses tarot cards to heal with. So before I continue talking about jobs, we have this enemy here called Icarus Ire. Normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to use the improved blasting device to summon a bomb to make it implode on the Icarus Ire, and that's how you make it split into 2 over and over again. But we're actually going to skip a step here. Skip a step by weakening it. Then we're going to go ahead and hit the blasting device. Then we come back to the Ire and kill it, force it to split into 2, have the blasting cap come over, and then this is the only instance in any dungeon where an enemy's AoE will affect another enemy. So the blasting cap will explode, desire to split into 4, but we cannot completely finish it off yet. We need to summon another blasting cap and force it to split into 8, and then we can legitimately damage it. So we'll wait for the blasting device to be reset. It does take a little while, then we can backflip off, hit the device again. We're going to have to come over here because there's going to be a Spriggan that's going to actually, quote-unquote, be on our side, but we don't want him to be on our side. We want him to be taken out of the equation so that the blasting cap can do its job and split Icarus Ire one last time. Icarus Ire one last time, I can use my Conscious Sixth and eliminate all Icarus Ire in one shot. And there we go. It's just that easy. So getting back to the jobs, in the 2017 expansion Stormblood, they introduced Red Mage, which is what I'm playing as, which is a spell sword, as well as Samurai. And then the current expansion, which is Shadowbringers, introduced the Gunbreaker, which is basically Squall's weapon from Final Fantasy VIII, as well as Dancer, which uses long-range chakra to do their attacks. So basically like Xena, Warrior Princess, but without the battle cry. So we made it to the final boss here, Gygas, this giant minotaur, but yeah, as great as they say he is, he's not really that much of a challenge. Everything out of the way, and we're free to go. Yeah, I can't leave until I take care of all the enemies that are still chasing after me. And finally, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And also, there is a class that is not really used in dungeons, but is used more of a side challenge. It's Blue Mage. And Blue Mage utilize abilities obtained from your enemies. And they have their own separate quest line independent of everything else. And at the end, when you get to level 50 as a Blue Mage, you can then go participate in what's known as the Masked Carnival, and you can take on a whole bunch of various enemy challenges associated with it. So we're now at our next dungeon, which is Halatali. Halatali is the first of these side dungeons. We've been in main story dungeons to this point. This is the first side dungeon. We're going to try and do a quick skip, which will allow us to hopefully outrun everything. It's important that I kill everything that I need to, especially these three over here. And when I do, I can get over to this boss here. I need to one-shot him, because if I don't one-shot him, then I have no choice but to kill everything that I left behind. So we'll run over to the fire that I need to enter through, and I've outrun everything. So now we're off to our second RNG elements. We're in a situation now where we have to activate a series of chain winches. Now, every time we activate a chain winch, one of three things is going to spawn: a treasure chest, a bomb, or a trio of lightning sprites. What we want to avoid seeing are lightning sprites. We can avoid everything else if they spawn, but we do have a situation where lightning sprites appear, we do have to kill them because they are going to chase after me. So it's important that I eliminate any lightning sprites if they spawn. We'll make our way over to our next chain winch.
Mathia, do you know if there are any differences in the versions between the platforms in this game?
Well, because I'm playing on PS4, because I'm playing on console, really the only difference is the fact that everything does not load as fast as it does on PC.
Okay.
Other than that, pretty much everything runs the same way. There are no cosmetic differences. There are no game change differences, other than the fact that you're playing on a keyboard as opposed to a controller. But you do have the option to use a keyboard if you so desire on PS4. I'm just not using one. I would prefer to use controller.
Fair.
Looks like these enemies want to play, so I have no choice but to fight them. I have been getting instances where I can avoid combat with them. So a bomb period, I can just ignore him. To my next boss. Normally when you're fighting him, this boss that we're coming up against, he'll go invincible by electrifying the water. Lightning sprites after you, but because we're so strong, that's not a problem. We're into the final section of Halatali here. Yeah, Halatali, I should point out, is when you start out, it's an abandoned gladiatorial coliseum. Then it's made available to gladiators to compete in what's known as a hard mode. A number of dungeons in this game do have hard modes, and so Halatali is one such thing. And when you go along, you'll go along a different path than you did in the original version of the dungeon, and the enemies you'll fight will always be different. So with Tangata here one-shotted, we can now move on. I won't be able to one-shot all of the bosses. We will reach a certain point where we will no longer be able to do that. So next up is the 1,000 Maws of Totorak. Halatali was an abandoned coliseum. Totorak is an abandoned prison. And Totorak is unique in the fact that you need to collect some very important items in order to get the mini bosses to reveal themselves and also to advance further. So away we go. We're going to have to get these Agdq photo cells. We need to collect a total of 4 in each section so that we can be able to advance further. We'll make our way over to the Tarok, backflip off him, magnification, myself a little further along, and I can launch myself right into the photo cell. That worked out better than I hoped. Now we'll have to deal with these louses here, as well as what they dragged with them. Another photo cell, we'll just repeat the process.
Now, is this speedrun dependent on your item level at all?
It's not, well, because we're on low level, it's not so dependent on item level here. It is in dungeons in later expansions. Having stronger item level is really useful. You'll notice as well that my character is maxed to the current max experience level, which is 80. And so we'll put our photo cells that we obtained in the terminal here. And that deactivates that force field, and then we'll move on. So yeah, item level is dependent on what kind of equipment you're using. The equipment is essential for obviously a lot of different ways, a lot of different things. And while I was talking, I accidentally did something I was not intending to do. And I killed an enemy too soon and ended up getting him to spawn the photo cells, because for the most part in this next section, the photo cells are not out in the field. They are obtainable from enemies. So yeah, while I was talking, I wasn't paying attention and I accidentally killed Warden's Whips a little too soon. What I wanted to do was bring them all together and then have the opportunity to kill them all at once and then get all their photo cells. So we'll go ahead and...
Adaptive strats.
Yeah, what's normally supposed to happen is you bring all the whips here and then you collect all 3 photo cells at once. Here we go. So now we're going to get sucked in by these webs. These webs aren't that much of a deal, and I don't need to worry about them if I'm running by them. But if any are in my way, then obviously I need to deal with them as quickly as possible. Pull everything over this way because we made it to where the next set of photocells needs to be used, but we do not have all of them. This is the one and only instance where we have a photocell out in the field. So kill the cell mites that were behind me and pick up this one. So now we're going to repeat the process we used in the first mini-boss confrontations, because the mini-boss is exactly the same. We'll try to put the cells in, but no dice. This Curler Ninetails wants to interfere, so we'll just go ahead and kill him off. So the last section is a bit of a slog, because now they introduce this slime that slows you down whenever you walk through it. A thing, but it's no big deal. I've come up with ways of dealing with it as best I can. Just need to clear myself a path as much as I can, and wherever there are opportunities to walk on things that are not slime, I will use them. Also instances where enemies will spawn whenever one of these fleshy pods explodes. You may have noticed they are... whenever I walk by them, they have poison in them. So now that we're in a bit of more of an open area, we're just going to go ahead and run through and stay on the stones as best we can, because we're going to try and outrun the enemies that are currently chasing after us in order to open the door that's ahead. We need to navigate through this very snaking path in order to get to this door, and we are free and clear. Enough that I don't need to worry about them. If the enemies are far away enough, then you will be able to... Okay, that was not supposed to happen. Somehow, I targeted behind me instead of in front. That's actually something that is beyond my control for some reason. I'll try and avoid dealing with that. But yeah, that was a really weird instance where I was trying to target the pod and I ended up targeting behind me instead. So we have this last enemy here, Graphius. When you are fighting him and you damage him, he'll get to a point where he'll insert his tail into the ground and generate more slime. And if you are able to, you can take out his tail as well and weaken Graphius himself. The next up is another dungeon where Final Fantasy XIV's 1.0 storyline really comes into effect. We're off to Hawk Manor, this game's stereotypical haunted house. Which, speaking of which, there is currently a Halloween-themed event currently going on in Final Fantasy XIV called All Saints' Wake, and it uses Hawk Manor as a reskin to have you do some various events. They introduced this year a masquerade where you can go in and you can change yourself into any of the NPCs that are part of the game. So one of the things we need to do is pick up the keys that are part of the manor, because they're needed to unlock certain doors. We don't need to collect all of the keys, but we need to collect a minimum of 2 of the tiny keys, and then we have to obtain 2 other keys. We need a green key and we need a yellow key. Also, there are enemies that we can choose to intentionally avoid. There was an enemy over on the side that I could have fought, but I was able to ignore completely. Oh, that bat really shoved himself up to the wall, didn't he? So this claviger here has the key that I need. Anything behind me is going to get nailed with my Contra 6. And pick up the key. And then run back over here. Needed the key to access the Ivy door. This allows us access to the basements. Jump over the railing. This key. Now that we have. Yeah, it's a very rare instance where I was able to have the enemies so far over there that I didn't end up engaging them. So that was very fortunate. Along the way, we're going to start kiting more enemies, killing any enemies that get in our way. If enough enemies are just happen to be close enough, we can just Contra 6 them, and then I can use my Swift Cast to get rid of what's left. You can see a total of 3 enemies that are on my tail. I'll just wait for them to all bunch up together and then take them all out once. So we needed the tiny key to open this jail cell. Got these guys out of our way in order to access the required yellow key. So we have that key, we can make our way, because you'll notice we took the long way around. That's because of that. That barrier prevents you from taking the most direct route to the yellow key, so you have to take the scenic route in order to get it. We have a steward here and his jester friend, who we will do away with in short order, and pick up the bloody parchment they left behind. Now, this is an instance where we're going to use an ability known as Return. Return is something that you can use in dungeons to go back to the start of them, or if you're on the field, you can use Return to go back to the your home hub aetherites, whatever you've chosen it as. So we needed the parchment to unlock this sealed barrier. So now we're going to fight off this sentry and force them to open this door to the final boss, Lady Almondine, who was horribly disfigured because of the aftermath of Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. And so in order to try and regain her lost beauty, she basically made a deal with the devil, and it turned her into the hideous monster that we just saw getting killed. Yeah, it ends up being one of the few instances where a final boss has a legit backstory, and it is quite a tragic one. So next up is Bray Fluxes Long Stop, which is located in the swamp, and the task that you have to do here is part of a long series of fetch quests, but this is the only one where a dungeon is involved. So as I mentioned, I've done this before. I've done this run in previous speedrun marathons. I had the opportunity when I was in Toronto back in May to perform this at the Anime North convention. And it was there that I got to meet a person who recently picked up this game and has taken a real shine to it. People who are longtime fans of Games Done Quick might be familiar with her. She goes by the handle of Proto Magical Girl. And it was at Anime North where I got to meet her, and she expressed her interest in my run, and she offered her services as my commentator, which was very nice of her. And as far as this game is concerned, like I said, she's really taken a shine to it, and it's pretty much the only game she plays now whenever she streams on Twitch. This particular dungeon, Bray Fluxes Long Stop, she said was her personal favorite because of how because she really likes the namesake of this dungeon, and she also in this place's name.
Mathia, do you have a favorite dungeon or song in the game?
A favorite dungeon? Oh, that's a hard one. I can't say that. I know that there are people who have dungeons that they really don't like, and we will be featuring one in this run. But as far as a favorite dungeon, not really. I really appreciate all the challenges that are featured in each dungeon, especially the one here at Bray Fluxes Long Stop on its hard mode, because longtime Final Fantasy XIV players will know that this place was, on its hard mode, the epitome of a speedrun dungeon. Like, speedrunning may not be well known as something that Final Fantasy XIV is known for, but diehard players from a long time ago know that this was a definitive speedrun dungeon, and you could actually get kicked out of a dungeon for not being good enough with your DPS. And that happened to me on a few occasions when I was starting to play this dungeon. This was a place that really, on its hard mode, had a reputation for being notoriously bad for new players. But it is the first instance... I meant to backflip there. It is the first known instance where proof was established where the hard mode of this dungeon was the first to be able to be completed under normal synced rules, under normal light party rules in under 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So it was there last year when I clocked 920 with a random group of players, and we were able to pull that off. It was really amazing that we did it, because I didn't think it could go under 10 minutes. And now, since Shadowbringers has been introduced, a number of dungeons have been able to, under light party rules, break the 10-minute threshold.
Awesome.
So up next is Sunken Temple of Karn. Sunken Temple of Karn is a bit of a challenge in the fact that there's a puzzle at the end that normally you would solve, but because we're speedrunning this, we're not going to solve the puzzle. Solving the puzzle requires you to use certain enemies to open doors that allows you access to some stones that allow you to solve the puzzle, but we're not going to be needing to use their services here. But in some instances, those enemies will be used to open required doors that will allow me to advance. And one enemy that I really, in particular, need to kill off are going to be these bees. Because these bees have an ability called Final Sting, which under normal circumstances is a one-shot kill. So we want to avoid dealing with them as much as possible. And in places where we are required to kill them off, then I will do that. Deal with the Teradotor. He's an enemy, I should point out, that is known for using Doom. Anyone who's played Final Fantasy XIV knows what Doom is, can attest to the fact that it's not fun to have that on you, and you need to deal with it quickly or else you're going to have a really bad nightmare. So we needed to kill that Avoirdupois in order to open the door. Now, this is the section I was talking about where the puzzle pieces are, but like I said, since we're not needing to solve the puzzle, we can just skip that. And the avoirdupois will back off. They won't follow us like everything else is. Over here, and then we'll go ahead and backflip off the wall crawler. Now this Temple Guardian, he's interesting in the fact that you need to destroy his soul stone first before you can legitimately damage the boss himself. And so that's no problem for us given what we've got. I should point out as well, with the previous final boss over in Bray Fluxes Longstop, he has an ability once you damage him a sufficient amount where he will start puking at various characters, various party members. And if he happens to be standing in the puke that he throws out, he can heal himself if he's standing in it. So it's very important to get rid of him as quickly as possible. We're gonna have another forced situation where we need to kill the avoirdupois. We need to get him on these glowing panels. The glowing panel is what activates the trap. If you don't kill him on a glowing panel, he will revive himself. So that's not fun. Once again, bringing the avoirdupois to me. Standing on the door, that's perfect for us. I will go ahead and into the final chamber. This is where the puzzle is. Right here at the Scales of Judgment. So I want to bring everything in and kill everything as fast as I can. What? Oh, you gotta be kidding me! No! There were some bees lurking in there and they got their final sting off! Ah!
Oh, it happens.
Oh, no! That is incredibly rare for that to happen.
That's like
yeah, that's gonna
send me
luck. Back. Yeah. Thankfully, if you die, there is a shortcut option that you can use to get to the point where you defeated the previous mini boss. But yeah, that's gonna set this back a couple of minutes. Yeah, in fact, it might end up putting me over estimate. Yeah, that hurt.
Well, we got time, so
that was unfortunate. Thankfully, though, I don't need to worry about anything else, and I can just go to the puzzle area. I can just get back to the puzzle area and quote-unquote act like nothing happened. Oh, but yeah, that's actually never happened to me in a speedrun marathon. I'm usually able to avoid that from ever happening.
So the bees just kind of snuck up on you?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So, since we didn't solve the puzzle, we turn on the Scales of Judgment. That triggers these enemies. With 3 condemned, we have to kill them all, and then that opens the final boss chamber. We'll go ahead and fight the Adjudicator here and take him out. Yeah, I see people in the chat saying, yeah, that's never happened before. Thing happened in speedrun marathons, which yep.
There's always a moment like that, like truly. So don't feel bad.
All right. So next up is Cutter's Cry. Unlike the previous dungeons that we've seen to this point where you can kite everything until you get to the boss and kill it off or something, here, at least in the first part of Cutter's Cry, you don't have that option. You have to kill everything that you see before you are allowed to advance. So that involves us killing all these enemies over here, these bats and these sentries. That'll cause the next set of enemies to spawn. I'll bring them over here, these last 2. And that'll allow us to use these shifting sands to move on. And now, not the section where we have to do the exact same thing. Off everything that's here. Then just start killing whatever we see. I'll bring everything over here. And they're dead. All right, so now that that's taken care of, we can start running freely. The sentries and the bombs to our advantage. So what's interesting about this next boss we're coming up on is that if allowed to live long enough, it will start to summon reinforcements which can actually heal her. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about it. We can also outrun everything and just jump into the quicksand, which we're going to be doing twice over in this section. We'll just kill anything we see. Then anything that ends up getting in my way is just going to go down. So we have enough to be able to outrun the enemies that are behind me, hopefully. We can use our next set of just in time. Just in time. Using our abilities as we have them is really good for speedrunning. And as I said, Red Mage has proven to be the most prolific thing to use in IL speedruns for solo. But we are seeing more different warrior classes being used. Ooh, I one-shot him. Nice. Usually he requires 2. I was able to get a good enough crit hit to prevent that from happening. That was awesome.
They're giving you something good after the incident.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I would look at the chat to see what that is, but obviously I'm focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah, this last section allows us to really run free, and we can deal with anything that's in our way. This section I really like because it has the fire that's jutting out, and sometimes if you get too close, if you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, it'll blow up like that. So, all the way to our final boss. The final boss is the Chimera. The Chimera is quite a case because you have to pay attention to the prompts that it gives you, because depending on what prompt it gives you, you either have to run away from its next attack or you have to get up in its face. Yeah, you'll see that thing. It said, Dragon's Eyes now burn violet. That means that you have to get in its face. If it says the Ram's Eyes turn blue, you have to run away. And one somehow slipped through the cracks, but that's alright, we got him. I like what the chat is putting in. Alright, next up is Stone Vigil. Stone Vigil is actually, in terms of the main story questing for Orem Reborn, which is the set of dungeons that I'm doing, this is the last required main story dungeon. The last 3 are all optional dungeons. So this place is a rundown castle that got taken over by a wide variety of dragons in all manner of shapes and sizes, and these things, they're getting on the nerves of the locals, we'll just say. But their presence here, it plays a significant role in the eventual storyline that comes in the epilogue of Orem Reborn, and then into the next expansion known as Heaven's Ward. Oh, this is probably, as if there's a favorite speedrun dungeon that I have in this run, it's this one. Because this is the one where you can really run free the most. There's only one thing that gets in your way at any point in time. So, first thing we have to deal with is the mini-boss here, Chudo Yudo. I always call him Pseudo-Wudo because his name still sounds so similar to the Pokemon Pseudo-Wudo.
Oh my goodness.
When I did my Let's Play of Orem Reborn back in 2014, because if there's one thing that I did with Final Fantasy XIV before anything else, it was doing it as a Let's Play on YouTube, which I still do. Among the 4 expansions that I've currently done, I've amassed over 650 Let's Play episodes, and I'm still going strong with it. It's definitely been the thing that has defined me as a Let's Player on YouTube is Final Fantasy XIV. Even though I've played a wide variety of other games, this is the game that people know me for the best. And so now we come over here to Kosche, which I should be able to two-shot. Ah, he survived. He survived my two-shot, but that's all right. Now we're going to try to use our abilities to outrun everything, because we're going to try and pull off a skip here. The enemies as best we can. I'm going to leave my displacement for when we get to the end. It's going to be crucial for what I'm going to do here. So, I'm going to get the Avis to come to me. I'm going to use the displacement to backflip off him, and hopefully I can open the escape before I get attacked. Oh! They counted it. That was close. That was really, really close.
Oh, yeah, that was like just in time.
Now we'll take on our final boss, Iskabind. He typically flies away after the first attack, so this gives us plenty of opportunity to kill everything that was tailing after us. As you can see, it's a lot. Yeah, you also notice that Iskabind likes to, when he flies away, he likes to breathe ice on you. He has a very fancy icy breath that he likes to utilize, so put up with. All in all, it's definitely a really good speedrun dungeon. You can really run freely in here and pull off some really fun tricks. Okay, so, next up is Zamile Darkhold. Zamile Darkhold is a place where it's not necessarily conducive to speedrunning. It's not like Copperbell Mines, where you have to kill a series of enemies that take a long time in the mini-boss sections. What you have to do here is you have to stand in some blue circles, and those are basically the locks that allow you to open the gates that you can advance through. Enemies also here can be really tricky as far as their positioning, because this place is so narrow, they have a lot of places that they can hide behind. So it can be tough to find an enemy that's just in the right spot for you to be able to launch an attack on. We don't need to stand in all of the blue circles, we only need to stand in some of them. That I need to use are over here in this wide open area. It's over here. So I'm going to bowl everything over to me. Back in the day, this actually was a very popular place to level a character from level 44 up to level 50, because since this is a level 44 dungeon, this is a place that's gained a reputation for being a quick path to getting to level 50. What I'm going to do is, once the countdown wears off, I can just use my core to dash to the next terminal. We need to wait on this all-seeing eye. We cannot damage him currently because he can only be damaged in the boss room, and we need the terminal to count down as quickly as possible so that he'll turn around faster. Now, this is an instance where he actually ended up going quite a bit of distance out. So once that's taken care of, he'll then turn back in, and then he'll make his way to his starting position. We cannot start damaging him until he completes flying over to where he's going to be standing, and then he has to stand in this purple light, or else we cannot damage him. When he does that, we'll go ahead and start attacking. And there we go, nothing to it. Next up is an opportunity for us to be able to gain a skip, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to involve these bone nicks that you see, these giant frogs, because they can be positioned in such a way that they can really give you a hard time. What I'm going to do, you see one standing there, I'm going to try and land down here, and I only have to deal with this one standing in front of me. If the Nyx notices you and gets aggro, they have an ability called Sticky Tongue, which they can then use to grab you and pull you into them. And that can really slow you down. Thankfully, though, everything worked favorably for me, and I didn't have to and I'm not going to have to put up with their little antics. We're going to pull everything over here. The next mini-boss, you saw it took some time for the All-Seeing Eye to get to his position in order to fight him. It's the same with this mini-boss over here that we're going to be fighting, known as Towlard. there, but we're going to wait until everything is over here. And once Tallard arrives on the scene, we are going to start damaging him. Can use my casting to get rid of these guys, and we're free to go. So Section 3 of the Darkhold, similar to Section 1, we need to stand in some more blue circles in order to advance further. So unlike before, we're actually going to leave these guys alive because I can use them to backflip off of with my displacement once this blue circle turns off. We can just bide our time, wait for it to go down, and then once it does, we are free to go. Perfect. And backflip. Here, and now we can start dealing with everything else. Now we'll just chill out here. Chill out, have some fun. While these things explode. Yeah, the orange crystals you see, they do explode at set intervals. And when they do damage you, but you do need to stay in their blast radius in order to be able to move on. Can use my core and displacements to get to the final boss. Now this one's going to be a bit of a speed run because this one in particular, we want to beat out the time that he'll need to get to a what's known as a corrupted crystal. If he used the corrupted crystal, he would have gone invincible, and we would have had to destroy the crystal or deactivate it before we could damage the boss again. We'll now move on to take on the Orem Veil. The Orem Veil is pretty much the dungeon that no one likes in this game. I don't mind it personally because of the challenge that's associated with it, but 9 times out of 10, if you're in a regular light party, your party is going to get completely wiped out in Section 1. And this is because all of the enemies here are in very close proximity to each other. So if even one party member is standing too far away from everyone else, they can end up pulling aggro on a whole bunch of enemies, and you can get overwhelmed really fast. So it is very unpopular, and in terms of trying to set an IL world record here, if you're doing it as a synced party, it is not easy. The aforementioned reasons. So we killed the first mini-boss, and we're free to go. You would use the Morbo fruit that we're running past in order to take off the status affliction that that boss offers. The final boss also does the same. So since we're in this particular place, what's interesting about it is what you see in front of you, the Gold Vine, which is this game's version of a very infamous Final Fantasy enemy known as the Marlboro. In this game, though, its name was changed to Morbol. So yeah, they do have a lot of enemies in this game that they have recycled from previous Final Fantasies for nostalgia reasons and also just to drive people nuts.
I have to give them credit, though. I feel like they do have a lot of unique enemies in this game.
That's very true. There's a lot of enemies that you can really see are really worth a challenge.
And just like the design of some of the enemies is really impressive.
That is. The floating enemies, the dragons, like there's really not an enemy that you can't say, even ones that have been used in previous Final Fantasies, that they did not do a good job in creating. So we saw in the first instance with the giant Morbol that we have to kill it in order to allow ourselves to advance further. We have to do that again in this chamber, but this time we have to deal with 2 of them. So I'm going to get this Gold Vine to come my way. And since he has so many enemies stacked up behind him, that's a great way for us to use our Contra 6 to just kill them off real quick. We use our core and displacement to run now to the final boss. And you may have perhaps not be surprised that it is yet indeed another Morbol. So we'll just use our magic to try and kill it as fast as we can. It doesn't get too far away, and thankfully it didn't. And then we can kill off everything else. He did get off one of the stacks of the Status Affliction on me. You'll see the white icon at the top of the red zigzag. That's the Status Affliction that boss puts on you, where you use the Morbo Fruit. Alright, we have now made it to our final dungeon of this particular run, the Wanderer's Palace. And Wanderer's Palace is quite a unique thing, especially if you're someone who plays one of the jobs that I mentioned earlier, which is Scholar. He has quite an important tie to the Wanderer's Palace because of the fact that this place is home to another famous Final Fantasy creature, the Tonberry. And the Tonberry, for those of you who are familiar, are little green creatures who wear brown coats. They carry knives and they carry lanterns. And they are the most well-known enemy in this particular dungeon. But here in the Wanderer's Palace, they actually have a lot of lore associated with them if you play as a Scholar. When you play as a Scholar, you get used to and accustomed to a lot of Tonberry lore in this place. Here, they're like any other villain. You gotta kill them. And in some instances, killing them is an absolute necessity because as we go along, we'll have to turn over some rusted devices, known as Nimian devices, and we have to take the lantern oil from some of the berries in order to get them working again. Now we're off to our first mini-boss. I'll deal with him rather quickly. Don't need to worry about any enemies that follow me over here. We can just follow what we see. And then we can activate the Nimian device. Now we want the Tonberries to start following us. To draw their aggro, we want to bring them to where these rusted devices will be. Take this long winding path. Yeah, you'll see a line that says, do not allow the Tonberry Stalker to catch you. In normal runs, what will happen is that you will be chased by a giant blue Tonberry known as a Tonberry Stalker, and he is going to... he can't be damaged, and so you have to put up with him. And if he gets too close to you, then he will start damaging you very, very heavily. And now that we have all the 3 flasks of lantern oil here, we'll go ahead and use them to activate these 2 rusted Nimian devices. On this side, one on this side, which will open up that door. And once that door is open, we can then activate this 3rd device. We will have to get more lantern oil from more Tonberries, but they're on the opposite side of this particular section. So away we go in order to get to where they are. You saw some enemies on the right. I don't need to worry about them. I do need to worry about these enemies on the left, though. This device is not rusted. We can turn it off, no problem. Then comes this section. Yeah, the Nimians I'm going to have to kill no matter what. Now, there's one of those instances of the blue Tonberries that you cannot kill. Take these Tonberries farther away that I'm not going to be affected by the giant blue Tonberry. And I'm going to go ahead and get off a spell to kill off the other Nimian. I need to get 1 flask of lantern oil, and then I need to get over quickly to this next section. Now, thankfully for me, these 2 enemies were right next to each other. I need to hopefully get this turned on. Oh, didn't work out. He got to me in time, so I have to run away, unfortunately, and I have to force him to walk off. I have to wait for him to get a sufficient distance away in order to be able to activate the device. So, yeah, another instance where it's really rare that happens. Oh, of course, he turned around. Of course he would do that. Of course he would do that.
He wants to see the speed run.
Clearly he does. Get this turned over. That was really unfortunate. Like, it does happen on the rare occasion that the stalker gets close enough that he can attack you, but rarely ever does it happen twice. Go ahead and use the flask of lantern oil to turn over this, and we are free to go. To confront another enemy taken from a previous Final Fantasy, you might remember the giant slimes from Final Fantasy IV that had various foodstuff names associated with them. Well, this Babawa is one such enemy. Now we're free to go to move on to the final section. Have all the enemies chase after us, including the tomberries, because some of them will have the required lantern oil in order to activate these two final tomberry devices. Let's go ahead and bring everyone in and start casting. Go to the Nimians so that I can collect the lantern oil. So we are coming up on time. Time will be when I leave the dungeon.
All right.
Turn over this device. Then turn over this one. That opens the door. So, perhaps not surprisingly, since the Tomberry is the featured enemy of this dungeon, any Final Fantasy fan will know that, naturally, since we're dealing with Tomberries, here at the end, we got to deal with the Tomberry King. We have to dethrone him. Alright, he is dead. Go to the portal, and that is time.
Well done.
Wow, I'm actually shocked that I was able, even with the death and sunken temple of Karn, and even with the situation with the Tomberry and the Wanderer's Palace, I still broke 103.
Yeah, that's like pretty good. That's under time. So hey, well done.
Thanks so much, Smooth. Yeah, that's very fortunate that I was able to get the run as low as I did. So before we go and call this a night, first of all, thanks to GDQ for allowing me to be here. But I have one last treat for you guys. I'm going to switch over for the end after I'm finished doing what we're going to do. I'm going to over here and turn off cutscene skipping because there's something I want to show to all of you guys. If you're not familiar with Final Fantasy XIV, there is something that I think you're really going to like. I want to ask all of you guys, since we're a couple weeks away from Halloween, I want to know how many people are familiar with the song This Is Halloween from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Because whatever Final Fantasy, the people of Final Fantasy XIV did, they must have used it as inspiration for one particular location that I'm going to do for you guys. This is a trial where you go ahead and you take on an enemy that you would think in a million years, I would never fight these things in a Final Fantasy. And yet here, you do in this game. You have to fight off an army of Moogles. Oh, yeah, and they want me to clear selection first, but that's all right. So we're going to go ahead and play Thorn March in its original form for you guys. I can see the chat is already excited for this. Especially if, like I said, if you're a fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas and you know this song, This Is Halloween, I hope you start singing. Here's this army of Moogles, but yeah, these aren't good guys like so Moogles we're traditionally accustomed to. They don't like that we've invaded their territory, as it were, and they're gonna take it out on us. We've been spotted, and they're not impressed by the fact that we're here. So they're gonna start launching an attack. This is Halloween, this is Halloween, da-da-da-da-da-da.
They were not subtle about this at all.
Oh, they weren't. So, we're gonna start killing these Moogles. We're gonna knock them out, but I hope you guys are able to sing at a faster pace because the more Moogles we kill, the song gets faster.
Oh boy.
This is more than a barrel of laughs, but this is actually one of the challenges in the game that has a reputation for being one of the most difficult, because this place, for whatever reason, people just somehow, and I don't know why, they end up skipping the mechanics in this battle, and people just fail it repeatedly on the first try. And people always end up are left with no choice but to beat it after trying a second time. I have no idea why this is, but that's just how it goes here.
Oh my god, it is getting so fast.
Yeah, so now that we knocked them all out, the music returns back to normal, and all the Moogles get on their feet because they're not done with us yet.
They're still upset.
They're still upset, and so now they're going to summon the star of the show. The spotlight, no less. King Moggle Mog the 12th. With a fancy mustache, and he is not happy. Just let the music play out so you can enjoy it this time around. There they go.
And they are down.
And yeah, the defeated Moogles. Oh, they're all so sad, and they know that they've been licked, so they must beat a hasty retreat.
That was fun.
That was fun. Oh yeah, there we go. There's everything I wanted to show off. Just a sample for those of you who have never seen Final Fantasy XIV and wondered what it was all about. I hope that this gave you some insight into the various things that you can get to experience and enjoy. Hopefully I was able to answer your questions. In terms of playing this game, I will say, like I said, I have over 650 Let's Play episodes on YouTube. As far as speedrun records are concerned, I've either currently hold or previously set close to 100 IL world records. But this, as far as being a speedrun game, because I know everyone that I've talked to about this being a speedrun game are so surprised that you can do it, because this is still, for all the players that are in Final Fantasy XIV, this is still very much, in terms of speedrunning, a niche game. People like myself have set records, but I know that there are probably people out there who have streamed who maybe have set better times than I have or anyone else has who currently holds a record. And perhaps the group of people that I'm surprised has not gotten in on this are people who who come together to do what are known as raids, which are extreme and savage level difficulties against individual trials where it's basically a harder version of an opponent that you were required to fight before. It includes the likes of Bahamut and Alexander, two well-known names of Final Fantasy. And I'm sure that if people out there who are part of the raiding group, who are really into raiding, knew that they could be able to not only utilize their raiding ability to achieve the difficult kills, but also knew that they could do them as speedruns as well, I'm sure that you would see a lot of people from the raiding getting into this and not only proving that they can kill the hard enemies, but also speedrun them there. And we would see a lot of healthy competition, and it would really raise the profile of this game as a speedrun game as well. So there are also people who have done this as full runs of the main story. I myself last year did a couple of runs of the story from the beginning of Orem Reborn to the end of the final first main story dungeon known as the Praetorium. And I was able to set a time of just under 16 hours, and then I beat it by a few minutes a couple months later. But because I had set my times before a set of rules was established, my times are not considered to be a proper world record. The rules dictate when they were set that you can only use there are various ways that you can get experience buffs whenever you kill an enemy or defeat or complete a quest. When the rules were set, you could only use what's known as Road to 70, which allows you to gain double experience on all quests completed and all enemies killed. You can't use any equipment that increases your experience. And there are quite a few that are available to players. So it's why the record, there's no official established record because the rules also state that you have to complete the main story, not just from the very beginning, but literally to the end of the expansion. So in the case of Orem Reborn, it means going from the beginning of the main story to completing all of the epilogue main quest too. And it's why the current world record is set by our lead admin, Deln, at just under 20 hours. But like I said, there's all different ways that you can do speedrunning in this game, either by yourself, with friends, doing all the individual dungeons, the trials, the raids. There's all sorts of opportunities for you. And if this is something that you want to do, I would love to see you be a part of it. And in fact, I would certainly love the opportunity to team up with people who might be interested in doing this as well. As far as my character is concerned, I'm based out of the Exodus server, which is a North American server. And I own my own free company known as Tales of Eorzea. And we have about 70 members. We've been an active free company for almost 4 years now. And so we've been around for a while. And if there are people who are interested in speedrunning with me or just being part of our free company, we'd be more than happy to have you with us. So as far as that's concerned for Final Fantasy, I think that's pretty much everything I needed to cover. If there's anything else you wanted to, if there's anything else you needed to talk about with me, Smooth, I'd certainly be happy to answer it.
No, I think that you covered everything pretty extensively. That was an awesome run. So thank you so much again for running it. And thank you guys all for being here and our subscribers for making this hotfix content possible. As Matthias said, if you are interested in speedrunning this game, just hit him up. It can be done. So for you all who think that you can't speedrun an MMO, it definitely can be done. So thank you so much, Matthias, for the run.
You're welcome. And so, yeah, I guess I should close out by saying thanks to Games Done Quick for having me. Like I said, I wasn't even aware this was a thing until a year and a half ago, and it was when I saw NES Cardinality do his Dragon Warrior RNG manipulation run, which, by the way, shout out to NES Cardinality, and I wish him the best of luck. He's competing in the Tetris World Championship this weekend, so we definitely throw our support behind him, and we hope he does well.
Awesome. Well, guys, that is going to be doing it for the hotfix for today. So be sure to tune into the Games Done Quick channel for Treefort this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will see you then. Goodbye.
Take care, and may you ever walk in the light of the crystal.